Welcome everyone to This is a Revolution, your now daily RevPro podcast for this weekend next. Never thought we'd say this, did we, Dave the Mark? Never thought we'd say daily, but here we are, joined by another fantastic guest, Mr. Dave Bradshaw, the voice of Revolution Pro, the voice, actually, of British wrestling. Thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate that I am the voice, not one of two voices of RevPro. I think Andy's going to really enjoy that. So I appreciate it.
Look,
I definitely think of you as the voice of RevPro.
The voice,
Dave. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Plus, we massaged Andy's ego enough. I mean, gave Andy lots of compliments a couple of weeks ago, didn't we? So we can't be too nice to him all the time.
Yeah, good. I like it. Nice.
He is the embodiment, isn't he?
Who?
Dave. Andy's the embodiment of RevPro. So if he's the embodiment of everything that is RevPro, you can be the voice.
He is the rest of the entire body of RevPro.
Yes.
I am just the voice. Yeah. Okay. Nice. I like it.
I was trying to think, Dave, when was it that we last did this? You'd been with RevPro for a few months at that point, I think.
When did I come in? Global Wars 24, which was October 24. So
I think it was. Yep, up in Doncaster.
Nearly 2 years.
And I think we then caught up together maybe at the start of 2025, maybe 18 months ago.
Okay. Wow, so it's a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
flown by.
Yeah. Having a look now, actually, see if I can get. But it is crazy because we only realised that we've been doing this for 2 years, like a couple of weeks ago, Dave. It's just
over 100 episodes now.
This year's flown by wildly. Like the idea that we're recording this the day after we've just come back from from Cardiff, right, for Unfinished Business, and it's like, well, how on earth are we suddenly within this 2-week window of Wembley? Months ago when we announced, oh my God, we're doing the 14-year anniversary at the OVO Arena, Wembley, and it was like, oh cool, but that's amazing, but it's ages away, it's a lifetime away, and then here we are.
It was quite surreal yesterday, like saying goodbye to everybody and being like, see you at Wembley.
Yep.
You're like,
yeah,
that's like, it's real now.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it's exciting.
So much as, I think that so much of this year that's helped it pass so quickly in terms of RevPro is the fact that we've been on the road to Wembley pretty much from the start of the year. And it's given everybody direction. And everything's had this end goal in sight. And although it's not an end goal because we'll be back in London for Portchester Hall literally 8 days later, but it's a seismic event on the journey of Revolution Pro Wrestling. How have you found for this year? How have you found that kind of major milestone ahead? And keeping that kind of, you've been, the conversations with Andy, getting the scoops with Andy on the recap and the wrap up each week. It's been, as a fan, it's been something whereby we're constantly building to this and we're constantly building up the excitement for it. How have you found it from on the inside?
Oh, incredible! Because for one thing, I never know what Andy's planning, right? Most people involved in RevPro will tell you this. He never tells us very much in advance at all. So, like, we're guessing as much as the fans are guessing, right, where this is all going. And so to see it come together over time, and you're like, I think this probably is what we're shooting at. But he's very good at throwing in curveballs as well. So, like, sometimes
so much
suddenly you'll be like, oh, okay, we're doing that. And then obviously sometimes circumstances throw curveballs at you as well. So as sad as it is what's happened to Ethan Allen, and, we're all wishing him well as he gets better from his recent surgery. Like, that's completely changed the whole face of at least a good portion of the card for Wembley. So every week it's exciting because there's in Ethan's case, not exciting, but, in general, the stuff has been incredible, just with all the different unexpected directions it's headed in, and then to suddenly be here and to see now the card. We were going through for a video that will go out on the RevPro YouTube channel, I assume in the next few days, like a little preview video we did after we finished filming the wrap up yesterday. So we're going through the 10 matches that are already announced for the show. And just as you're going through them, you're like, man, this card
unreal, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. And the depth, the depth and the layers in all of the different feuds that we've got going into this. It's like, it's going to be breathless. Like it's going to be like, as soon as one thing finishes, it's another thing. And there's just no filler at all. It's like everything is a feud that's been going on for months and in some cases years. And to be able to resolve some of that in a place like Wembley with hopefully a record crowd is, it is exactly what we all get into wrestling to do. And we get to do it in less than 2 weeks, which is mind-blowing.
It really is. And it feels like...
I
was going to say, I love how you mentioned that, Dave. And when you look at the card, it is very RevPro heavy as well. So it's not like
exactly what I was going to say, mate.
This big super show. It's not, hey, let's get all these imports in. Every single person on that card, whether they are RevPro UK based or US based, all have a reason to be there. And maybe with the exception of FTR, everyone has history with RevPro. And even then, they are RevPro adjacent with Royal Quest. And I love how we're putting on a show of this caliber, this size, and it's being allowed to stand on its own two legs as British wrestling.
Yeah, and it speaks to the faith that Andy has in his roster, that we can go to a venue as iconic as Wembley and aim to beat that record of just over 4,000 fans that was set at the Copper Box 3 years ago, and to believe that we're in such a healthy position that we can do that with only a very, very minimal number of imports. And as you say, almost all of them anyway have RevPro history. Like, do you really call Zack Sabre Jr. an import? Is just testament to what this company's achieved over 14 years. It really, like, I think sometimes, and I know Andy says this all the time, it's a quote we borrow from Andy Bernard in The Office, right, where we say, I wish there was a time to know you're in the good old days before you're no longer in them, or something like that. And it's like, he said that a couple of times on the wrap up, and I'm like, no, he's right. I mean, this is the sort of thing where 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we'll be like, remember how good RevPro was in 2026? I mean, hopefully it still is 5 years from now, but certainly we'll be looking back at this and being like, man, that was a time, wasn't it? Like the summer of 2026, Wembley, the whole year, probably our best ever year. Most people in the company are saying that what we've been able to do this past year in ring, in terms of all the venues, going from 229 to Porchester Hall, for example, and expanding in that way. It's just this incredible roll of momentum that we're on. And it all culminates in a couple of weeks, which is just so exciting. You said about there being no filler on the card at Wembley. There's just no filler in RevPro anymore at all. Like, so when I first started going on a weekly basis, so pretty much from the day I discovered RevPro, I fully invested in the sense that I watched everything. I just couldn't get to every show to begin with. I'd watch some at home with the family on telly. But you would get maybe 2 or 3 matches per card, which had ongoing storyline. And then 2 or 3 matches on a card, which were an exhibition match or, an opportunity for somebody to get a win, to build up some momentum, to maybe challenge for a title. And now, like, you writing the previews each week really, really highlights it to me, because they write themselves. Like, all I have to do is just regurgitate the narrative, because every single contest, every single week has such meaningful purpose behind it. Yeah. And I don't think it's ever been, certainly not, I don't know, I know all of RevPro pre-pandemic from, in hindsight, going back and watching it. But then it felt very much like a dream factory. So for me, it feels now, there's never been a time in RevPro where it is as story-driven as it is now, and also as competitive it is now to get into the company, get on the card,
maintain your position on the card, and it's everything is as essential as I think it possibly could be, like it is a weekly episodic television company.
And I think one of the great strengths of RevPro is how quickly we get the matches in the ring. So, you know, for example, JJ Gale just finished beating David Francisco in the strap match at Summer Sizzler, and then TK Cooper surprises everyone by coming back and attacking him. And the next week we're doing Gale and Cooper. You know, so it's like, it's not one of those things where, oh, right, someone's come in and attacked someone, and maybe we'll finally build to a singles match between them 12 weeks from now at the next big pay-per-view, because, you know, everything in RevPro is a big show. And so we're like, right, let's go. You two got a problem? Let's fix it in the ring. And it happens very, very quickly, which makes everything constantly exciting.
Yeah.
And then that creates the problem that we talked to Andy about with how then do you make space for all these guys on a show like Wembley?
Mm-hmm.
But it pretty much looks like he's found the best balance for that. Because you can now look at, we've got 8 matches that are fully like confirmed and we know who all the participants are. And then we've got 2 matches that we know what they are, we just don't know all the participants in them. But you can look at you can look at those matches and see, that's surely, like we just mentioned, JJ Gale, TK Cooper, and David Francisco. You'd expect all 3 of them to be in the Revolution Gauntlet match. And it's to be able to fit so many wrestlers onto one card makes it an incredible, like, super show. Mm-hmm. But also the Andy's loyalty to those wrestlers and rewarding their loyalty to RevPro, I think, is something which really needs to be commended, because anytime I hear any fan say, like, oh, do you think, like, there'll be more big names coming in from other companies? And you're like, well, maybe, but if they do, who's going to miss out? Because there are only so many spots, and this is really a celebration of RevPro. Yeah, I think so. And by the way, the reason I was saying that in a slightly knowing way when I said you'll know soon is because yesterday I had my best ever wrap up. Oh, lovely!
In terms of getting scoops out of Andy, so I got. I won't spoil it because the wrap up will be out soon. I don't know when it might even come out before this goes live, but he gave me, I think, 3 more names for the men's gauntlet match.
Nice.
And all the names for the women's scramble match.
Oh, really?
Which I thought was an exceptional journalistic achievement on my part.
Well, I would agree with that,
done.
Dave. When we had Andy on, I actually, at one point, I missed the opportunity. I was going to try and channel my inner Dave Bradshaw and ask Andy for a scoop, but I bottled it. I bottled it in the moment, so commend you for doing that. And I think,
to be fair, he was very tired, and I think he was just sick of my questions, so I think he just gave in the end. But I'll take it.
Hey, get the wins where you can. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing who those names are, because one of the things I'm really loving about RevPro at the minute, and I think adds so much to it, is the backstage reactions, the wrap up, because it's just all this content. And I've often said this is kind of nice little additions that will help tell the story a bit more. But now, for some of the stories, I feel like it's becoming required viewing. And one that really got me, and it's got me hyped even more, was Rio. And just her backstage reaction, how angry she was, not having a named match. Who could it be? Are there going to be AEW women? And the fact that we're even discussing that for RevPro show at Wembley is incredible. Like, it just goes on and shows that growth that the company is having.
Yeah, and we talk about everyone managing to fit everyone in on the card, but of course there are people who aren't happy, or certainly weren't happy for some time with where they were going to be on the card, if at all. Like, and that's so a lot of that's more based in reality than you might think. Like, I think Shah Samuel's objections to where he was going to be on the card were a real source of tension. We saw that tension overspilled, much to the detriment of the left side of my face recently. But you know, there is all that. There is that, like, people who, I mean, you think about Shah Samuels, right? You think about Ricky Knight Jr. until yesterday when he announced himself as the replacement for Shah in that 8-man tag. Like, these are the two guys who headlined last year.
Yeah.
You know, and it was far from certain that they were where they were going to be, if at all, on the card, and now Shah isn't on the card. Like, Ricky is Shah's replacement on the and no disrespect to his place on the card. I think it's a very important match, the opener of a show like this. But from main event to opener, it just goes to show that there is nobody, however, whatever their tenure in RevPro, nobody is guaranteed a spot on this card. But on the flip side, as you say, Andy is very big on loyalty. People who've given their time and their effort and their blood, sweat, and tears to RevPro over time. He would far rather find a way to put those guys on the show than to bring in another import. You know, just because it might sell an extra 10 tickets. Like, and so I think that's a real selling point, and a real reason to celebrate what we're going to hopefully achieve on the 29th. I
think when you think back to last year especially, because I remember talking to Andy almost on a daily basis, to the point where I'd message Andy of an evening to say, am I safe to go to bed, or are we announcing anything more tonight? Because there were 2 shows, so there was like 20 matches to be announced, matches that were changing and negotiating and developing on a daily basis. There were meet and greets to be announced. There was all these things going on. And from that to this year, where it's like, here is our card. When I put the Instagram stories up and you've got, here's the match graphic, here's the 30-second video to promote that match, here's all 10 of them. And you're like, we're literally good to go tomorrow like, in terms of the promotional side.
Yeah.
And
you say that, Dave. Let me just comment briefly there. I wouldn't assume we're done with 10.
Yes. We've had 11 match cards in the past. And I would not be surprised at all if one more came our way. What I like is the fact that we're kind of in a position where it's like, do we need another match? No, it's amazing already. Is anyone going to complain at another match? No, because it's just adding an extra decoration to a beautiful cake. And I'm the first person to say sometimes if I think like, really enjoyed the show, probably went a little bit longer than it needed to. But when it's an anniversary show, all of that's off the table, isn't it? 'Cause it's like, this is like the huge celebration. It's like a wedding. Like, nobody complains at a wedding that it's a long day because everyone's just loving the whole vibe and the moment. What I really like about how we've got to this position, though, is because when you look at all of our matches that we've got coming our way, our undisputed British Cruiserweight Championship match is the J Cup winner, challenging the current champion.
Yep.
We've got the Women's Grand Prix winner, challenging the current champion. The Revolution Rumble winner, challenging the current champion. Even with the tag team contest, we've got obviously that match has had to change, but before it changed, it was the Trios Grand Prix winners calling their shot.
Yeah.
And it's meant that all those big championship matches can be announced that bit sooner because they've got embedded storyline that have led into them. And then, like you say, all of the other matches have got, in some cases, like over a year's worth of development going into them. Like when you think of like Liam Slater and Leon Slater, for example. And then like you've got your big Jay Joshua, Zack Sabre Jr. match. But that's almost like, I kind of think of it as canonized in RevPro, that it's like it's a badge of honor to get the Zack Sabre Jr. match. And
Yes.
everybody's like, from Oku, but when Zack first came back, it was Oku and Leon Slater were his first 2 matches when he first came back post-pandemic and could fly again. And then we've had Mills, we've had JJ Gow, we've had Robbie X. So it's like, who's the next person to get the Zack Sabre Jr. match? So everything that's there has had this great build to it. And we don't have any of those matches where it's like, here's a graphic and you're like, wow, that's really cool. Couldn't have predicted it though. Like, it's come out completely out of left field. From the wrestler's perspective, that must be so rewarding, because it feels like wherever you are on the card, I know that's always going to be something which is you want certain spots, but wherever you are on the card, you are going to have a captive audience because every match is investable.
Yeah, and actually, and what's really interesting, you talk about the 3 singles championship matches, is they're all very different in terms of the storyline, and yet there are parallels with all 3. In that, you could say, in the case of Connor Mills, in the case of Kanji, Nino Bryant as well, that actually the challenge all 3 are going to face is whether or not they can keep their emotions in check against opponents who they would really like to rip apart with good reason. And I think that in all 3 cases, there will be different answers to that question, right? Will each of them be able to channel the rage they have in order to survive those title matches and survive the pressure? Connor Mills, for example, so many people saying, oh, it's finally Connor Mills' time. It's finally Connor Mills' time. He's lost 5 in a row to Michael Oku. It's just taken 6 years to get to this point. And now he's going to win the big one at the biggest show we've ever done at Wembley. Well, what if he doesn't? What if he can't? What if Kanji cannot beat the woman she hates the most? And Kanji would then be feeding all of those critics who said, oh, well, she might be great, but there's a difference between being a great technical wrestler and being a champion. And you can only be the nearly woman or the nearly man for so long until it becomes a label that sticks. And so all of these people, they have this incredible pressure on them. And who will, they say pressure makes diamonds, right? But who becomes a diamond and who just fades away in that scenario?
Absolutely.
Very interesting question going into Wembley.
Yeah, I agree. Dave, you've got a very unique seat in RevPro in that you are there literally calling the action, watching everything unfold and getting that across to people. And one of the questions I've got for you is, in your position where you are, get to watch the matches, get to see all this unfold, all up close, everything that goes in and out of this, taking all of the commentator brain off and just putting you as a fan with everything you've seen, what would you say, if you had to boil it down to 1 or 2 matches, what are you as a fan looking forward to most at Wembley?
That's a very good question. I would say certainly the 2 main singles titles matches on the men's and women's side. I think Oku and Mills. I know Michael Oku has been causing controversy recently, but let's face it, Michael Oku is a star. He is a superstar. He is the face of Revolution Pro Wrestling and has been for a good while now. And no one deserves to be headlining Wembley Arena more than Michael Oku. I think what's happened to Michael Oku is as fascinating as his character has ever been headed into Wembley, and not just his, but the effect that that's having on Amira as well, who you probably saw I interviewed her again recently.
Oh yeah,
YouTube channel, and my goodness, like
that was an intense watch.
Yeah, where her head is at the moment is you could write essays on in its own right. So, and then Connor Mills, obviously that whole story of again always being the nearly man to Michael Oku, always playing second fiddle, the intensity with which they've gone from friends to enemies doesn't even feel like the right word for it at this point. You know, that it's so intense, the hatred between them. So that is must see. And equally, I think the Kanji thing is with Alexis Falcon, because Alexis Falcon does a better job than anyone of being in control of what she's doing in terms of getting into her opponent's head. I would say she does a better job of that than Oku does, because Oku sometimes feels at the moment a little unhinged, right? Like he's not necessarily in full control of his actions himself. Whereas
he can get a little bit carried away in the moment, can't he? Whereas Falcon is so calculated.
Yeah, like, you know, there was a certain level of desperation, too strong of a word, but he needed to get that third championship reign in order to keep his psyche in check. Whereas Alexis Falcon, ever since she's arrived, you could count the moments in time when things have not gone according to her plan on one hand. And the biggest victim of that has been Kanji, because Kanji was on a roll in 2025, you know, nearly becoming the champion, nearly beating Mercedes Moné in April last year. And then to go from that to really coming off worse in that entire feud she had with Alexis Falcon a few months ago, and then to see it come full circle and to see that Kanji, after that just remarkable single-day performance in the Women's Grand Prix, but now to get what she wants, has to defeat the one person who has exposed her weaknesses more than anyone. That's the person who's come around again that she has to face to achieve her dream. It doesn't get much more interesting than that, I don't think.
No. I would also say as well that I think if you're looking at the entire RevPro roster, I don't think anyone's had a better single year than Alexis Falcon, because she's come in, she's gone up against really stiff competition. She's beat Kanji. She's already done that. She's beat Mercedes Moné. Yes, she may have done it through nefarious means to get there, but she's found the way through. And that was something that, for the longest time, like you said, Kanji maybe didn't find that. She didn't find the way to get through. Whether that was doing things the right way or the perceived wrong way, Alexis, for me, had the strongest year of anyone in Revolution Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, and look, you know, and I'm no defender of Alexis Falcon, right? I'm not going to sit here and in any way endorse much of her conduct at all. But one thing we say regularly is that whether you like it or not, champions find a way to get it done.
Yeah.
Right. There's a difference between that and someone who believes they should be a champion and then complains about a rope break decision from a referee that they don't like, or complains that something else went wrong and it's never their own fault, and they're gonna grab the camera and whine about it in the post-match reactions. You know, we all know the type of person I'm talking about, and there's a difference between those with a constant sense of grievance but no singles championships to their name, and those who get it done.
I find Falcon and Kanji they're kind of a really good symbolism of the World Cup that we saw with Argentina and Spain. And interestingly, when you hear former medal-winning footballers, top-level footballers, talking about Argentina, they talk about them with so much more respect than your average football fan does, who just doesn't like the type of football that Argentina played or the tactics that they played. Whereas when you hear the former players and the veterans talking about it, there's an admiration for doing the dark arts and winning and finding ways. And that is ultimately, if Alexis Falcon comes out of Wembley with her championship, it doesn't matter how she does it, the history books will just say that she is still the undisputed British Women's Champion. And that's all that matters to her and to any other wrestler who has fought a similar style. But she doesn't care in the slightest, I don't think she cares what anyone thinks of her. But she'll have their respect still, because, like you say, if you do everything virtuously, but you don't have anything to show for it, it doesn't really fit well with sport.
Yeah, I mean, again, don't get me wrong. I think the absolute best wrestlers in the world are the ones who are able to get it done without losing their soul in the process. Or in Alexis Falcon's case, I'm not sure if she ever had one, but those who can disprove that mantra that good guys never win, good guys finish last. It's not always true, because you can stay true to yourself and win championships. But over time, even the good guys, it can eat away at them. Case in point, Michael Oku.
Yeah.
And eventually something snaps and you change.
It's an incredible, it's something we touched upon it earlier, but maybe the point that stands out to me wasn't the point that we kind of highlighted, is not only is it an incredible RevPro card, but it's such a British card, because when we look at our people coming in to supplement this, your Callum Newmans and your Zack Sabre Juniors and your Pacs, like, we're talking about British wrestlers, the best British wrestlers in the world, who are returning to give back to something that they love and something that gave them such a platform in their careers. To see Michael Oku and Connor Mills headline this card, and to see Kanji and Alexis Falcon be, I don't know where it will fit in within the card, but you know that it's going to be such a high-profile contest wherever it does fall, given everything that it's deserved this year. When you think of those matches and you're like, we'll have major title match. Maybe we'll put one of the other matches in between. Yeah, we'll slot Luke Jacobs versus Pac in there, and you're like, oh my god, crazy. Luke Jacobs versus Pac. Like,
yeah, it's one of the challenges, right?
An incredible. Just think, someone's got to go on second.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking. Like, we know what the opener is, and we know what the main event is. But between that, there's going to be, well, at least 8 other matches to fit in. And one of the sort of fundamental things you supposedly learn when you're booking wrestling shows is, right, you need to give them ups and downs, right? People need a little break. If you've just had one of your marquee matches, give them something to have a rest. Or there are no rests here. Like, it's an adrenaline rush for however long it's going to take, 4 or 5 hours probably, from start to finish, and where you decide, well, great, we've just had this incredible 8-man tag, which I'm sure will be wild. What next? Which of the other 8 options I have do I put on second? Fortunately, that's the problem Andy has to solve, not me or you guys, but I don't know how you begin to figure out what the best sequence is for putting those on.
No, I'm really looking forward to seeing how Andy does pace the card, because that was one of the things that we were worried about last year, weren't we, Dave? We would talk about it, and the levels of matches and the burnout that can come with it. And I think maybe with one match that didn't land probably the way we wanted or expected it to over that 2 days, everything went swimmingly in terms of like the ups and downs. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how it plays out here at Wembley.
That Global Wars card last year, it flew by.
Yeah.
Like, and I've never been to a show that was as long as that managed to be as fluid as that was. And then the anniversary show had the very, very clever use of the James Castle segment and speech and the Curtis Chapman segment and speech to just not, and it's not like they were used as like a toilet break, because they were things that fans were really wanting to be a part of, but just to give you a chance to take a breath and just sit back in your seat and have a drink and just breathe out for a moment. They worked out really, really, really well. I think Andy has earned a lot of faith with his ability to do these longer shows without and it's not something that he's had huge amounts of experience of, because your York Hall shows were always eight matches, so very much like what you'd see it live in London or live in Southampton is what you'd see at York Hall, except maybe a little bit longer. Matches might go with that a little bit longer. But the first copper box and the second copper box and Crystal Palace cards, and there's something where like 9 matches or 10 matches. I would say judge the pacing on the more recent ones and the early ones, simply because practice makes perfect with that. And last year, I thought was a tremendous job with that. So he's got my trust and faith with it this year. And like I say, when you look at that card, it's so hard to see how you would put it together. It is going to be like we are spoiled at the sweet shop with it. It's all part of a big all-in weekend. Is there anywhere else that you've got your eye on, Dave, for all-in weekend that you're planning on soaking up, or is it all about Wembley on the 29th for you?
Well, I've got Riot Cabaret on the Friday, so I'll be at that in Clapham, and then RevPro on the Saturday, and then who knows? If I'm not too tired, maybe I'll be in Wembley Stadium on Sunday. So, but I know like Pro Wrestling Eve are running as well. I mean, it's the biggest weekend of the year in British wrestling, clearly, and one of the biggest we've ever had as a weekend in British wrestling. Just even if you took out All In and just based on the RevPro running Wembley alone, that alone makes it one of the landmark dates in British independent wrestling in the 21st century. It's that big.
And you have this kind of unique position because you've been a part of British wrestling for so long.
Yes.
Has there been, in your time in British wrestling, has there been a time when you would get weeks like this, or where you would get in, or is it more of like an individual show might run which was sizable and comparable?
I think there's nothing directly comparable to this, because there's obviously so people refer all the time to that sort of boom period that British wrestling had around 2017, right? And Progress were running a big show. I think they run Wembley.
They ran Wembley.
ICW ran the Hydro, right? And they were all the What Culture, where I was working, did big arenas that had at least 2,500-3,000 people. Those sorts of things. So that was a mad time, and really was a boom for the whole industry, not just for one company. Obviously, AEW didn't exist back then, and WWE weren't running PLEs over in the UK, so there wasn't that element of someone running Wembley Stadium the same weekend either. But just again, take that out of the equation. Just this idea of RevPro running Wembley, I think that's a much bolder, braver thing to be doing in 2026 than it was in 2017. Not to disrespect anything that was happened in 2017, because even then, Matt, to run those kind of venues like Progress and ICW did back then is enormous. But to be able to do it now, when by most accounts the industry as a whole is maybe not quite where it was in 2017. You could argue RevPro is better than it's ever been. But to do it now, when the received wisdom is that this isn't a boom period quite like we had almost a decade ago, and to take that risk to be able to get similar numbers and probably more than those companies did in those venues almost a decade ago, or just over a decade ago, is actually kind of mind-blowing. And it speaks to, in Andy's case and in RevPro's case, playing the long game, right? Which is those other shows, again, I don't mean this in any way disrespectfully, but they were riding a wave, right? There was this sudden boom period, and boom, right, let's take a risk, let's run these arenas. And that's great in its own right, but it's very different to starting a company in 2012 and over time making those decisions that mean over time you grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And so 14 years into it, which, by the way, is significantly more time than 90% of independent promotions ever survive for, let alone be bigger than they've ever been. To be able to do that over time, build up, make the decisions that maybe weren't immediate in terms of the gratification, but that made for a sustainable company that can then fit potentially, who knows how many we're going to get at Wembley. Maybe certainly we're hoping for more than 4,000, right? Yeah, I don't really have the words for it. I mean, I think the fact that we're about to achieve that is stunning.
I'd really agree, Dave. I was part of that boom in 2017, going to these shows and seeing it, and you had all the YouTube shows and everything. It just felt something special was happening, and then it kind of died away a little bit. And I think that there should be a real focus on the grassroots level stuff that British companies are doing, and to build that talent and build that scene. Because as long as I've been coming to shows, there were lots of imports, and you see the level of talent as they were progressing, and that bottom floor now of talent is getting higher and higher and higher every time. I remember, for instance, seeing Cameron Kai for the first ever time, and he was more developed than I think a lot of people that I saw maybe a few years before, who had been around even a few years at that point. And along with that, I think advancements in video on demand, people being able to get streaming services to watch these companies, they can actually get this more in-depth relationship with a company without even having to go, so that when a Wembley show comes up, they can just disappear, go to Wembley for the day and go, I know what's going on here. And I think that plays a big part into the success of British promotions now.
Yeah, I think so. And I think we talk about that boom period in 2016, which was in large part driven by what a great depth of talent we had in the country, right? And I do genuinely believe that we have something as good or better than that in the country right now. I mean, you talk about Cameron Kai. How good was Cameron Kai yesterday against Bandito? Like,
ridiculous.
That was incredible. Absolutely incredible. Main eventing against a Ring of Honor world champion, looking like he belonged in there. And then you've got the likes of Leon Cage, you've got the Bryants, you've got all the great talent we've seen coming in the women's matches we've had in the past few weeks. There is no shortage of talent. Obviously, it's a different landscape because in 2017 it was one giant company in the world that everyone else was sort of up against, if you like. Whereas now there's competition within the big companies. There's two big American companies, so it's a different scene. But I feel like the British independent scene, with RevPro kind of dragging it there in some ways, is due for something akin to what we had in 2017.
I think there's a few bits there which jumped out to me, because we talk about, or Dave, you talked about the fact that growing a sustainable brand and making difficult decisions. The one major decision that Andy made, which went against the grain and against the norm when we talk about 2017, 2018, is the fact that he was the one that was brave enough to turn down the WWE money that was offered to be able to put RevPro onto the WWE network, but also to have influence over how the relationships between RevPro and other companies. And Andy's talked about it before with the fact that he stayed loyal to New Japan and the relationships that he formed there. And, when NXT UK started and WWE Network took on Progress and it took on ICW, and we saw those companies and it exposed them to a huge number more people. And you had wrestlers who were, the opportunity to see Mark Andrews, who had appeared in NXT and was then being used in Progress, and you've got that immediate crossover of wrestler I've seen on the telly to wrestler that's wrestling in Britain, and who else is going to get picked up. It's such a bold decision and in bold investment that Andy made in sticking true to what he had envisioned, and looking at the long game rather than the short game, because I'm sure financially he would have been a lot better off if he'd taken that money at that time, but he would lose control of the thing that he has created, or at least lose some control of it. I think it is a huge testament to now Andy has the opportunity to run the most iconic venue in British wrestling, the venue that other companies have been able to run in the past, whether that's Progress or World of Sport, and be able to do it with his wrestlers in his roster of people that he's given chances to and watched them progress up, is something that maybe people that are listening to this who are newer to RevPro might not be completely familiar with.
Yeah, and I think as well that for those of us of a certain age, it's we're able to understand it in the long arc of history of British wrestling as well. I'm sure younger people can as well if they've studied that stuff, but obviously for those of us who lived it, it's different. I'm just about not old enough to remember Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks, but their huge match in Wembley Arena in 81 was enormous. Like then you've got, obviously, and anyone who's ever heard me in a podcast or an interview is probably sick of me going on about when I was a boy, I was at SummerSlam 92, but I was like, and the fact that this show is on Saturday, August the 29th, which is the exact day and date that SummerSlam 92 was on, to me is the universe smiling, saying, yeah, you get to do this, and it's like 34 years later, if you could have told nine-year-old me that I'd be doing that just yards away in the arena, it is what else can you? I think sometimes we all get carried away with our daily lives and all the stresses and stuff, but when you look at it from a bird's eye view and go, that's pretty cool, isn't it? Like it is, and I'm trying to do that thing that none of us do, which is live in the moment and not be so worried, I hope I get the cool right on the main event tonight or whatever, that that I'm sort of able to be like, I'm in Wembley. There's going to be hopefully plenty of moments to drink it in and savor it.
Enjoying the moments, like you say, enjoying the good times whilst we're in them, rather than just looking back in hindsight. George, you said before about the video on demand, which obviously Dave is a huge part of. It really, really stood out to me yesterday, in fact, when we were in Cardiff, because I'm a proper people watcher. And whenever I go to a RevPro show, I look around to see who else has made the trip. Who else do I recognise from other towns? And I'd say Cardiff yesterday the tram shed was buzzing.
Great venue, by the way. I love
great
the
venue. A real kind of hot packed, it was a modern take on a dirty club, because it wasn't dirty, it was beautiful and clean, but it had that intensity and that kind of everybody on top of each other feel that I absolutely crave. But I looked around and my first thoughts were, this might be a little bit quiet today, because I don't recognise many people. There's a couple of people that I recognise who live in Wales but come to RevPro around the country. And there's a couple of people who I can see have made the trip. So you're like, okay, so will they know the stories? Or are these guys who go to Welsh wrestling who are like, yep, we'll go watch RevPro the same way that we'd go and watch another company if they come into Wales? Yet that crowd knew everything that was happening. They knew everything that was going on. They knew everything that was occurring between David Francisco and TK Cooper. They knew everything that was, happening between Liam Slater, and Kid Lycos 2. And it was, for me, that was a moment where I kind of stood back and was like, there's a lot more people watching this weekly on demand than I think we give them credit for. You don't just have to be in the venue watching to be able to take it all in. You've got these other avenues. And even if you didn't have an on-demand subscription, to be able to watch the recap and then the wrap-up and then the backstage reactions, you've got everything you need to be like, oh, I missed that show, but I've not missed a beat. You've got effectively your match of the day. You couldn't be there live, but you've got everything you need from it. Obviously, all of those things have come in with you at the helm with Andy. How much have you got to enjoy being those? I'm sure on the day they must be exhausting after you've just done a full commentary session to then be filming the extra bits afterwards. But you've really made them your own, because I remember when, for example, when the wrap-up first was launched, my logic was, I don't need to watch that one because I was at the show. And then very, very quickly, I was like, oh, I need to watch these because you never know what scoops Dave might get or what little breadcrumbs Andy might leave. So this whole kind of new layer of additional production, how proud are you, first of all, of what you guys have been able to achieve? And then how much are you enjoying that process?
Yeah, I think and hope it adds something. But I think
so, mate, honestly.
100%.
Yeah, well, that's good. It makes it worth us staying back after to do it. But I actually think I'm not just being modest or whatever, but I do think the biggest thing is the reactions, right? As good as the wrap up is, and hopefully the recap is useful for some people. But and yeah, you're right. There are breadcrumbs, or if I'm lucky, I might get more than a few breadcrumbs, get an actual name or two out of Andy in the wrap up. But and so they're definitely worth watching, and I encourage people to do that. But the backstage reactions and seeing what the wrestlers actually have to say about what they've just been through, I think is where it is the lion's share of the difference, because I think that has added so many layers to so much of stuff. And sometimes not just the reactions, like sometimes when we've been able to do sit down interviews, like the one I was talking about that I was able to do with Amira, the one we just put out with Leighton Buzzard and Nino Bryan, which was wildly uncomfortable because they were like, oh, you've all got to fit into the same shot. And I'm like, well, these two don't really like each other. And and we're all...
Nino looked like he was ready to go at any moment as well.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm talking about whether Nino's going to be able to contain his emotions at Wembley, because he could barely contain them for a 10-minute sit-down interview. So that's a problem he's going to need to address. There is more of Xander in Nino's personality than he might care to admit. But yeah, all those things hopefully are adding something. I think they are. And me as a fan, and me as a commentator, because I don't see all those reactions and being filmed during the show. So I see them on YouTube when everyone else sees them. And to me, they're must see, because I'm like, I can't do my job if I don't know what all these guys have been saying after their matches. So I have to have seen the reactions prior to the following week's show, because otherwise I'm missing something. And then if I'm missing it, I can't convey it to you guys at home. So, so yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the effort that's been consciously put in by a number of people, Andy included, and our production team, who do an incredible job on it, to give those additional layers beyond just the shows themselves, is certainly contributing to why I feel like we're in such a good space as a company now.
And Andy mentioned when we spoke to him, he used a phrase that I've used for a long time with RevPro. So it was nice hearing him use it as well, because it shows we see it in the same way, that RevPro is a finishing school for British wrestling. It's not the place where you come and cut your teeth. There are it's an ecosystem, all of wrestling, and that every company needs each other to be able to create this wider scene. But ultimately, RevPro, our grand designs for all of the wrestlers that we see is for them to be able to take the next step up and get a life-changing contract and take their wrestling to a global audience. And obviously, in an ideal world, that would be through RevPro for a TV deal. But until that day happens, it's about preparing wrestlers for a potential future where they can go on like Robbie X has done, like Gabe Kidd has done, like Callum Newman has done, Dan Maloney and people like that. Will Ospreay obviously we're going to see him headline and hopefully win the AEW championship at Wembley Stadium. But we all met Will for the first time in a much more humble venue, wrestling in front of a much more humble crowd. And the backstage reactions for me are a huge addition because they're also they're putting a camera in front of a wrestler and giving them a microphone. And that's not always people's most comfortable position to be in, but it's forcing everybody to develop those skills. And we've talked about it before when you compare the backstage reactions from when it first started to today and how far wrestlers have come. But I always think any time any wrestler is presented with a microphone, it's an opportunity. And we see that now so like on a weekly basis. And you see the promos that the wrestlers are cutting and you're like, these guys are so much better prepared now for this experience to take the step than they would have been in 2022, 2021, 2020, when the only time anybody put a promo out on a RevPro style product would be off their own back on socials or an in-ring segment maybe once every 6-8 weeks to set up a match at your call. It's how much can you see that momentum and that process happening, the change in the comfort levels with wrestlers with it?
I think you see it developing in real time in front of your eyes, because I think you see it with, again, Nino Bryant's a good example, right? The intensity and just how credible he is and how much you understand his psyche as a person, and not just in the sit down we just did, but a lot of the times that we've seen backstage reactions from him recently are evidence of that. He is so much more articulate and so much better able to convey what he means and what he's feeling than he was a few months ago, even. And he's not the only one. I think like JJ Gale has become a really interesting person to listen to when he's giving his backstage reactions, and I'm sure he would say that's what we do now with the backstage reactions has helped him to develop it in that way. Kanji, even, I feel like Kanji's another one who's benefited from that. There's people I'd rather hear less from, who certainly have never had a problem expressing themselves and could maybe do with a period of silence at times. But for those who needed that development, then yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Love that. Dave, thank you for spending so much time with us today. It's been wonderful to hear what you're feeling, your insight and everything. I've got one final question for you. So next week, and I can't believe I'm saying it's next week, Wembley, when the lights go down on that main event and you get the chance to sit and reflect what a moment, what a mark RevPro made on the scene with that show, what do you hope the next mark or the next big mark RevPro makes on the scene is?
I think it comes back to what Dave was saying a minute ago, which, and it's not wrong, that it's still considered the case that the place to get to is one of these big US companies. I don't believe that has to be the case. Just purely on the number of people in the country, maybe it's not as likely that a UK company would be able to fill up venues of 20,000 people every week for a weekly TV show. But I don't think that's necessary anyway. I think you could run an equally compelling product in front of 1,000 people every week, and then occasionally run a big stadium basketball arena type place that's doing 20,000, and that could be as much the goal and considered the pinnacle of the wrestling world as going to WWE or to AEW, because I don't feel that for a good number of the people on our roster, both wrestlers, non-wrestlers, whatever, that I don't feel like their careers have failed to reach the top if they don't go to WWE or to AEW, because RevPro can be the top. The company that's leading British wrestling can be what people aspire to do, not just as a stepping stone to something else, but for their career. Because I firmly believe we have the best wrestling scene in the world in Britain. It's not the biggest in terms of regularly getting 80,000, 90,000 into a stadium several times a year, but it's the best. And why wouldn't you want to be where the best are? And there's absolutely no reason why, with the interest, the natural interest that there is in Britain for wrestling, if the amount of potential like casual fans who you could bring in if wrestling was on the correct platform, why these guys couldn't be household names in Britain without needing to go anywhere else, without needing to go to the US or Japan or Mexico. And so RevPro doesn't need to be a finishing school for anywhere else. RevPro should be, to quote a Michael Oku move, the final destination. And that's what Wembley could be a stepping stone to.
What a way to end
Big
it.
word, isn't it, there? That platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Well, we're going to have the biggest platform we've ever seen for RevPro next week. OVO Arena Wembley, August 29th. RevolutionProWrestling.com is where you can get your tickets if you still haven't got them. It's going to be the biggest RevPro show. It's going to be a huge crowd. You're going to have a wonderful time. And no matter whether you're someone that wants the premium experience or you're someone that just wants some affordable tickets to get in the door, RevPro have got you covered. Dave, thank you very much. I appreciate your time as always. It's been absolutely fun to chat with you. I could sit here for another hour chatting away with you. And if I could, I would. But sadly, I've got to get back to work. So thank you for your time. Until next time, we're out of here.